Hello, everybody. Welcome back to some Toonkind D&D. This is a 12 FPS. I have not done this for a while. Dang. Hi, my name is Whis. And I'm going to be playing Selling Alamos and probably a metric buttload of NPCs today. And I am joined by the awake and upright and yet very sleepy good buddy of mine.
Hello, my name is Winona. It is early for me right now. Though I did have yogurt and some tea, and hopefully that will help me out.
The things we do for D&D.
Yes, things to do for D&D and friends. I give you little heart at you.
Little heart at you too.
But today I'll be playing Scrambles. To say Sally's amazing fiance.
Wow, that's what you're gonna go with.
This morning, yes.
Love it, love it. Well, this is under new management, and this follows on as well. I suppose it is part of the Pokemani storyline, even though that is quite neatly wrapped up. Well, the thing it's not a game, but the video ahead of this one in the playlist would be the entirety of the lore. So actually, you know what? No, I'm going to keep it at the bottom. I'm just going to keep putting the games on top of it until it stays at the bottom. There you go. I've made a decision. You heard it here live. But yeah, this isn't the Pokemani storyline. And Scribbles and Selli are tidying up some loose ends. As you do.
Yeah. Look, they just been through a war. Arcs in prison. They can't leave. I feel like neither of them in good conscience can leave the rest of the island to their own devices.
No. And like, Selli is very fond of her home, even with all of the stuff that her father put it through, for lack of a more polite way of putting it. So, like, she does still have an interest in making sure that Johtos, and now that she knows it exists, Kantos, are well looked after. But she really needs to figure out what the state of affairs is first, and she's taking Scribbles for moral support.
Yeah, don't blame her.
So I suppose they're going to have to mosey their way from whichever of the nearest islands has the teleportation circle. I don't remember right now.
Me neither. It's one of them.
Francesque, I think, or it might have been moved.
I think it was Francesque, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, teleportation circle station there, and then get a boat. But unlike the last couple of times where they've had to try and bribe a confused someone from Francesque to get there, they have thought ahead, and they're actually getting a lift from another Pokemani.
Which is amazing. This is good. It's very good.
I'm wondering whether or not it's the Pokemani you're thinking of.
I feel I have a guess, but I'm also a little bit. I'm slowly waking up right now.
That's fair. But yes, the two fiance couple, the couple, the fiancés. Is that how you do it? Is that how it's said? I don't know. It's been a while since I've been a fiance. Plural. The pair of them. Scribbles and Selli, yes. Are standing at the dock waiting for their lift to show up. And the boat that pulls into dock in front of them is a long wooden Viking longship.
Yep, do it.
With cats engraved into the hull and a big, deep blue sail.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, they found his ship. How wonderful.
I agree.
And there's a few clunks from the ship as it comes into dock, and a rope and a plank so they can get on. and that you can see even without rolling anything, they can both see Yarth and Nerith doing all of the things required in order to get the boat still enough for these two landlubbers to get on.
Yeah.
And they both give a big wave.
Scribbles waves back happily, his hair yellow.
Hello, you two. Morning. Meow. How are you both? You need a lift, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do need a lift. It's been pretty busy, to say the least.
I would have thought that the two of you wouldn't have wanted to come back. Says a voice from near the helm. Helm. That's the word, right? Oh
I don't know Viking ships
time.
enough to know if it is technically called a helm.
I mean, they would have a helm. You could have steered somehow. Let's just go with it. They would have spoken in ancient Norwegian or whatever. So
True.
Helm will do. Oh, you've only just woken up and I've had a day. This is going to be a time,
This
folks.
is going to be a
Strap yourselves
time.
But yes, there's just been a grouchy sort of sounding, not even grouchy, just raspy from the place where one would steer a boat.
Yes.
And Ralph's over there. He's just standing there, hands on the helm, grinning in a way that the Pokemani do.
Well, I can't say you're not wrong, but there's still... I feel like there's still stuff that needs to be done.
Well, the place is still there. That's a good start.
Yeah, that's
encouraging.
very... Yes.
Thank you for taking us over. Not a worry. Sure beats having to recall one of this lot. He jabs a thumb over at some of the other ships that are docked out.
Yeah, we have done that a lot.
Well, your old man did make it hard to get to that island. And off of it. There's a bit of a theme with how he kind of operated.
Scribbles nods. Yeah.
Yes, there was. But that's all changing now.
Yep, all changing. And Scribble is just like, takes her hand in moral support. Gives it a little squeeze.
And he nods and gives a bit of emotion for them to get onto the boat proper. And Selli will wobbly, because she's like, oh, I've never been on a boat like this before. Sort of very cautiously come up the plank and get onto the longship.
Yeah. Scribbles...
And, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Scribble is definitely, like, keeps a hold of her hand as he helps her with balancing, getting up the gangplank first, and then he himself gets onto the ship second.
Great. Now, in this particular ship, there are actually benches, sort of seats built into because it's a sailboat, but it's also got oars.
Mm-hmm.
So there are spots for people to sit. So while they use the oars, because that's just how Viking longships are.
Yeah.
And so Selli, having remembered what happened the last time they were on a boat, sits down.
Yeah, Scribble sits down right beside her pretty quickly also.
And Yarth and Nerith will pull in the gangplank and untie the rope and get everything ready for them to cast off again. And yeah, they will have a relatively uneventful trip from Francesc to Johtos. And like Ralph will, he'll sort of idly chatter. Like the longship is long, but it's not big. Like he can quite easily chat to them from where he is. But yeah, just sort of chat. What have you been up to? Oh, that's interesting. I don't understand what that means. Ugh, inland. Gross. Okay, well, you do you. That kind of vibe.
Yeah, of course, they probably say, Scribbles might tell him they're actually also building a house along the shore, so if ever you want to visit once it's done finished.
Well, I suppose if you're not sailing folk, on the coast is probably the next best thing.
Yeah, indeed. Not sailing, per se, but the beach is very nice.
Well, sometimes it's easier to stop this thing on the beach than it is at the dock. But that's to the shape of it, you see. And if you let him, he will launch into the difference between his ship and, say, Tarp's ship.
Scribbles would, and say he's interested. He loves learning new things.
Why the hell not? Roll me an intelligence, see how much of it you understand.
Alright, let's see how much he understands. Well, the dice.
Your int? What's your
It's not. That's not bad for Scribbles. It's not terrible per se, but with modifiers. But
Okay, that's a total of 7 for Selli. She understands not much of it, really.
Scribbles probably gets the bare bones basic.
Yeah, like she gets that they're different shapes. Okay, cool. I don't know what the rest of these words mean, but he seems happy.
Yeah.
But yes, he will pull them up to the familiar dock at Johtos. And as they get, like, the twins will rope, gangplank, so they can get off, etc. And, Cat, hello. Please be quiet. Shush. The twins will do that so they can get off, and then the reverse so that they can cast off again. And Selli sort of leans over to have a word to Ralph before she gets off the boat. You're welcome to roll a perception to see if you overhear it.
Alright, let's
Poppy,
roll a
shush.
perception.
Yes, you're very cute, but you're also large and annoying. Yes, you are. Large and annoying, you fluffball.
Alright, that's at least a little bit better. I think my dice are waking up as well as me. That's a 14.
Alright. I will do stealth, I guess? I guess it's a stealth.
I mean, if you wanna.
You know what? It's really funny.
Aw, kitty.
Poppy, hello. Yes, hello, UK. You've done your loop. Yes, there's nowhere to sit. We know. I'm going. Okay, you said hello. Go over there. Sit over there. Completely lost my train of thought. What was I doing? Stealth. Oh yeah. So like, Selli doesn't have any bonuses to herself, but you know what she rolled? 14. So like, meets it, beats it, but it's only just.
Only just.
Yeah. So like, you catch her. You catch some words of it, not the whole lot. With bare bones, just meets it. And she's asking him stuff about Kantos, and you catch Yon's name. And he gives not really a salute, but a hand gesture that's in the same vibe as a salute, and a nod. And then they cast off and head off away from the island.
Scribbles waves as they leave, of course, and everything. And then he sort of turns to Selli, and he's like, I say, what were we two talking about?
I'm not quite sure how this excursion will go. I'm hoping to get some wisdom from others who are more experienced in this sort of thing than I.
Scribbles nods. In this sort of situation, that is definitely needed.
But our first port of call is the Mutherhood.
Yep. Lead the way, Scribbles says with a smiley.
She'll take his hand and lead him through the town towards the Mutherhood. And I'm not gonna find the map, so I'll just beseech you to try and recall it. But the Mutherhood is just north of the docks area.
Mhm.
So it's not a very long walk, and you don't have to go right into the bowels of the town in order to get there or anything.
Mhm.
Um, but as you approach the Mutherhood, you can actually see in the yard there is a number of um, Pokemani children being watched by a bunch of Pokemani that look very similar in general design to Mia,
Mhm.
um, but are not Mia. Like, they could be sisters or cousins, perhaps, and some of them are like have very different kind of faces, but they're all pink for the most part. But
Nurse Joy
roll.
Pokemon. Look, I see what you did there.
Oh yeah, I'm laying it on thick here. But yeah, roll me another perception for this.
All right, another perception. All right. That is a dirty 20.
A dirty 20. Nice. All right, cool. So, as you look at, like, it's the same as any playground that you could imagine in any part of Anquil that you've ever been to, whether that's in Toontown, in the Giznep area where you guys are staying now, or in UPA, in University City, anywhere in between. Like, there's kids of all different ages, they're playing on equipment, they're playing in the sand pit, blah, blah, blah. But the thing that's the most notable is there's actually a fair number of them. There's a good, maybe 60 kids. It's there's a lot of kids in here. And like they're all of different ages. Some of them look very, very young. They're very, very small. Like look like
Aw.
they've just come out of their eggs, kind of small. And some of them look like they might be about 8, I suppose. And they're all sort of doing their own thing. Some of them are climbing trees. Some of them are just vibing. Some of them are drawing on a little outdoor table. They're all got something to do, but there's quite a lot of them. And some of them look like, especially the smaller ones, look like they could be ghost or dark type children. They have those color palettes that you have come to associate with those two types, being familiar with Yon and Mimi, and the twins being dark types and Rai being a dark type. So it's not actually that hard to pick them from amongst the really wee ones in particular.
Huh. Scribbles looks at all of this. Like he's not surprised at all about the new baby dark and ghost types. He assumed that this would probably happen after all this, that more of them would be popping up. Though Scribble is gonna comment, are there always this many children at the Mutherhood?
Hmm. Well, yes and no. The Motherhood is a fertility center, a hospital, and a childcare and a school all rolled into one. Lots of early learning is done here.
I see. I just say there's a lot of them here.
Lots of different ages too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a lot that looked like Rai when he was very young.
Yeah. Not surprised
Yes.
though.
No. With them not having to take any children across to the other island, these children can know their parents, their families.
Scribble nods. Yeah. Which very happy. But
Mm.
Scribbles does what with that 30-20 perception, say does he see Mia?
He doesn't see her. Like, he can see all of these tunes that are similar in design to her, who are scattered about either just supervising or actively engaging with the children, depending on what the kids are doing. Um, but her in particular, he can't see her, so she must be inside the building.
Yeah, and Scribbles like looks around. It's like, though I don't see Mia out here right now. She's say I would assume inside,
Mm. She is the High Priestess. She probably has lots of other duties as well.
which is fair. And Scribbles sort of motions her to take the lead because he's just like, he's never been inside the Muther Hood, so he doesn't. He would get immediately lost.
All right. Well, she will. She'll take him inside. And inside the Muther Hood, it is sort of has more of a, kind of like a school foyer, but also kind of like, I suppose, kind of like a nursing home kind of thing. So, like, it's obviously somewhere where people live to a point.
Yeah.
And like there are different portions to this building. Like it's a lot bigger than you'd give it credit for just by looking at it from the map.
Mm-hmm.
But there is like some doors. Like there's a hospital wing. You can see a sign there that's written in Unbekant's glyphs. Where you assume like the more medical sort of stuff happens, but for the most part, it looks like most of the school and the residential sort of stuff happens in this bulk part of the building. And Sally leads you through this part here and towards sort of like a front office kind of area. And there's a little desk bell, and she goes, "Ding." Does Scribbles have any remarks at this point? Or?
He's basically taking in this sort of layout design, and he can say he like sees the unbekant glyphs. He's like, I see. As he then sort of like gets the vibe of the place, and he just like sort of nods along. It's like, yeah, that sort of looks like the hospital wing. Yeah, this is mainly a learning center too. But it's just like he's very impressed at how they can get like say like it is big. So he's just like, dang, this is big. But it's just like yeah, this is like he's just sort of like amazed. Like, yeah, this is a all in one place for like learning and healing.
The island isn't very big, so I assume they had to be space conscious.
Yeah, say it only makes sense. It's just seeing it in its actuality is impressive.
And you don't have to wait too long before Mia actually comes around out of one of the offices, and she sort of just peeks around because she wasn't expecting anyone, and she blink, blink, and then goes, "Oh, good morning."
Morning, Mia.
I must say, I wasn't expecting the pair of you.
Uh, we finally got some time free, and we thought it'd be best to come back to see how everything's going.
Well, I'm sure you've seen all the children outside. Everything's going quite swimmingly, actually.
Yeah, a lot of children.
Quite a lot. Thankfully, it's a lovely day. So we've got the children doing a lot of their learning outside, and because we've had so many more children that we have been able to keep here, it's a full house. And we've got quite a lot of the older children in today. I think some families are appreciating the extra hands.
I bet.
And it's a good opportunity for the older children to help look after the younger children from time to time.
Yes, I understand that notion purely as a older sibling.
So what brings you to the Mutherhood, then? We did come to see how things were, but
Maybe
we
this
also
would be a
wanted
better. Maybe this is a better conversation to have somewhere more private.
Yes. I think you might be right, dear. Ah, okay. Well, you can come into the office if you like. It's just through here.
All right then.
She'll lead them both into the office. And I won't make you do a perception for in here. This is very much an office. Like, it's got a desk. There are lots of cabinets, lots of papers and books, and there's some qualifications up on the wall, actually, with Mia's name on them. She's got qualifications from Cinnabar hanging up on the wall for her medical studies.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, there's a couple of chairs in there, and she'll motion to them, going, "Please take a seat."
Yeah, and Scribble takes a seat.
So, how can I help? Selli will go and sit down next to Scribbles and just be like, "Well, we felt that we probably should come and make sure that both Johtos and Kentos were looked after, given as, well, there's been a bit of a shift in the balance of power, really."
Yes, Scribbles nods that.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of my characters talking to each other in this. I do apologize, Nona.
No, this is good. This is good. And Scribble's like, yes, indeed.
How many voices can I switch through one after the other?
Yeah. and Scribble does that. Indeed, and with Ark being gone, not to say that we're worried, but, well, we are.
Well, I can tell you that most of the staff you had at your house have, left the house, and it's been closed. No one's been going in there, as far as I've been seeing. I hope you have a key to it, Miss Celeste. Oh, I do, yes. That won't be an issue. I was afraid of that. No one wants to trespass on my father's territory, I suppose, but I just don't know the best way to tell everybody that he won't be coming back and that things need to change. That is a conundrum, yes. Well, you have a number of us who can help with that, thankfully. I was relying on that, actually.
Yeah, we both were. After everything that happened.
Well, I suppose here we'd want, well, I'd be more than happy to help, and we can get the ferryman to come ashore. He won't mind. And I suppose that's probably, with you not being around that much, most people have been looking to me as an authority, and I'm not sure that I like that as a whole island kind of thing.
Scribbles nods. Yes, being the high priestess here, you already have enough on your plate right now, especially with all the children.
Yes. And, well, I mean, with the ghost and the dark types no longer needing to be hidden, I've had to do a lot of reassurances of the parents who are having these types that, no, this is normal. But I haven't really known what to tell them.
Scribbles nods. That's another discussion that we need to also have. How to bring that up, especially with the others, say in Kantos.
This island does still need some sort of government. And like, from a day to day, it's not something that has really been felt yet, but it will need someone to make decisions, and not everybody is comfortable or willing. I'm more than happy to make decisions for the motherhood, but I cannot make decisions for the whole, or for the town, or for the people. That's not something that I am equipped for or willing to do. And, well, the ferryman wouldn't be either, at all. He's never really been much for being in the public eye, as you can appreciate, knowing what his roles are.
Scribbles nods. Indeed. Say, both of you already have enough in your roles. And yes, I agree, even though right now, from day to day, it seems fine, but long term, there will need to be someone. I say, we were hoping that you maybe have some suggestions on who that may be.
I don't know. I don't think there's a good answer for it. But why don't we go and speak to the ferryman? I can leave for a short time. Come.
All right.
And she'll hop up, and Selli will hop up as well, and Mia will lead them both out of a back door of the Motherhood building that leads to the outside rather than to the play yard.
Mm-hmm.
And Scribbles will recall where he met Mia and the ferryman a while ago now.
Yeah.
Along the coast just north of here, and she leads them down this little path, one that she's taken a dozen times before, but is not burdened with the stolen generation on this occasion, which
Oh, yeah.
she's quite happy about, not gonna lie.
I mean, yeah. Everyone's happy that doesn't need to happen anymore.
For sure. But she leads them both along this little path towards this small dock. And as you approach, you can see the ferryman's boat slip out of behind some bushes to come towards the dock, as if he just materialized as you approached. And he comes up to the small dock that's there and sort of glides off of it, or off his boat, rather, onto the dock, just to be standing on the shore as you approach. And he just squares his shoulders and looks very pointedly at Selli and then very pointedly at you, Scribbles, and gives a bit of a, he doesn't have a mouth, and he's not very expressive even for a Pokemani, but he gives this sort of nod, which is probably as far as you're going to get towards a aha kind of smile from the guy.
Yeah, Scribbles gives a nod and a small hello.
Well, very good to see you again, ferryman.
Yes, thankfully under better circumstances.
Indeed. So what brings you to my dock today? Dear, they have come to make sure that the island isn't going to fall apart now that the governor is incarcerated. Certainly a conundrum.
Indeed. We're hoping to have be given some advice. They're, well, a lot to unpack. And that's an understatement.
Indeed. This island and the other will both be feeling the effects of Arch Alamos no longer being in power in various different ways.
Yes.
But will also be feeling having been under his power for some time to come.
And Scribbles nods, indeed. And we want to make sure that both islands have what they need, a good solid base to build up upon. Say, so something like what happened will never happen again.
Well, I believe the intention is for the governor's oldest child to take over in his place. And he gives Selli a very pointed sort of look, and she squares her shoulders a bit and goes, I am already spoken for. I am the headmistress of the UPA University, and I cannot be a governess on top of that.
Yeah, she already has a lot on her plate. I still think that you need an assistant of some kind.
Lynn was going to find me someone.
But that's a different discussion for a different day. But yes, we have made a very good life, let's say, on the mainland. And even though we say I don't mind, and if Sally wants to return every once in a while, I would be more than say I'm happy to do it. But like she said, uh, leading here is not in the cards.
So you have come to give up your claim to the throne, then? I suppose, if you want to put it that way. But the problem is we don't know who would be more suited to take over. Mia doesn't want to. And I don't believe that you would be interested. Certainly not. My role is what it is, and that is how it will stay. You would not catch me dead doing his job. And Mia actually just sort of giggles behind her hand a little bit. What about Yon? Far more used to leading than I.
Scribbles nods. He would be, for sure, and tons of experience. Though, I'm not very. Again, there's 2 islands now, and had to ask him, of course, but not even sure if he wants to actually come back here or not. Nor not very sure if any of the dark top types or ghost types want to come back here. They have a lot of them. They were born. Well, I don't want to say unfortunately, but it is unfortunately. But say a lot of them were born there.
Indeed. And most of those who weren't were born on my deck. So I can understand. But if nothing else, you might be able to provide some guidance.
Scribbles
Though
nod.
you're right. 2 islands is very different to 1. The populations of both are about the same. It'd be doubling his workload. And while I do not mind the moniker of the ferryman, I don't imagine I would be able to do the trip between the two too frequently.
Yeah. There would have to be another probably dedicated ferry person to probably go in between the islands. But there is also another thing of how much do we want to give out? I feel the dark type and ghost type should be known, but it's more under the guise of how much we tell about the situation leading up to there, or at least how much we tell at one time. We don't want to cause a panic.
No. And I want the 2 islands to be united in some kind of way. As much as the ghost and dark types were born and raised on Cantos, their birth families, their birth parents are on this island. And they deserve to know them, even if they aren't, well, immediately taken on as the children of those couples. But at the same time, that will then reflect quite poorly on the 2 of you. And Sally looks over at Mia and the ferryman for having separated those families for so many years. It is a bit of a conundrum, yes. And the more of it you have to explain, the more of it you have to explain. To explain that we had no choice in the matter. Then you have to explain why.
Scribbles nod to this. Indeed. Hence why we were seeking your advice.
And it wouldn't be right to lie to them.
I agree there.
There's no easy answer. But maybe we can be content with just the two communities being friends. And perhaps some of the people who live here might prefer the environment in Kantos and want to live there. And some of the Ghost and Dark types might wish to be here. And so they could be equalized in terms of typing, but it doesn't have to be those types and then everyone else. An us and them mindset is very poor. Very, very, very poor.
Yes. That would be good. I'd like to hopefully maybe get some advice from Jan too, since again, this is we shouldn't. It's like it's part of his community too, and maybe some advice. Well, he looks at the ferryman. It's like Mia says she didn't know many. A good person to possibly lead here, but do you know anyone else on this island that may be, a good choice?
And the ferryman kind of puts a hand to his chin, and he's doing a think. He's doing a big think. And then he tilts his head to one side, and then turns his head to sort of look in the direction of the town, and then up a bit towards the Hall of Origin on the hill. No one person.
No one person. Maybe this is.
I'm gonna roll an intelligence for Selli, see if she twigs. Hell yeah! And you have a +2, which makes that an 18 plus 2. That's a dirty 20. There's gonna be a moment, and then she kind of brightens, just a smidge, literally and figuratively, because she's a light type, so she does that. Are you suggesting a council like on Cinnabar? Perhaps.
Scribbles nods.
No, you would need to have all 10 types be represented to recreate the council as it was.
Makes sense, of course. And that could be a good solution indeed.
It's not a completely out there idea. If it worked once, it could work again.
Indeed.
Well, Yon is on his way. I've asked Ralph to bring him here to help with this. Very, very clever. He will have some insight, I'm sure. For now, you should go inspect your old home. See if there is anything that you do not wish the public to lay their eyes on.
Scribbles nods. Probably a wise idea.
I will wait at the docks for Ralph to pull ashore. He swung by from time to time, just to say hello, and, well, he makes no secret of how proud he is of his ship. Having it back under his control makes him very happy. And obnoxious. But we tolerate him. It's a fond kind of obnoxious in a way. Yes, I think it might be.
Yeah.
He's also happy having his children with him, so.
Indeed. And letting him be out with this on the seas with them. It's just
I
great
don't
to
quite
see.
understand it myself, but then again, I'm not a water type, but then neither is he. Round is a metal type. He's a contrary fellow, but well, we'll just accept him for how he is.
Yes, indeed.
Well, off you go. If you two are going to go look through your old home, then now was the time.
All right.
Mm.
I say.
Selli will take Scribbles' hand and give it a squeeze.
Yeah, and Scribble squeeze back. He's like, "We'll be right back." As he starts leading the way to the mansion.
Yeah. Yeah, so they move back down that little path, and instead of going into the Mutherhood, they skirt around it. And back onto the roads. Now, the Alamos Manor is on the south part of the island, so you have to walk past the docks again in order to get there. But it does look like it has been closed up for a number of months. And I'm going to roll my d10 to see whether or not Selli can get her house key. Where's my d10? Why am I blind? There it is. Yes, good. Okay, that's a 3. That is not a 1. She does not fumble her house key. And it looks like a very old key, and it doesn't look like it's been used particularly often. Like, the front door being locked is a bit unusual. People not being here is a bit unusual. But she unlocks it and lets herself in, and there is a fair bit of dust in here. Like, this place has been more or less abandoned for a couple of months. Like, not immediately after everything went down, but not long after.
Yeah, a good layer of dust.
Yeah. Selli kind of lets out a kind of sigh and then starts moving through the house. I suppose that the best place to start as any would be his office.
Yeah, probably a wise idea to at least check up and clear out that place first before people get curious.
My father was not a fool. He wouldn't have left things just lying around. Anything that he really didn't want people to see, he would have kept in hammer space rather than in a drawer. But still.
Yeah. If anything, just box it up and we'll find a place. We'll find a place for it.
Yes. There may be something to be learned from it all, but I suppose we'll find out.
Indeed. And Scribbles gives her hand another squeeze as he sort of looks around. He's like, I've never actually been in here. I was too nervous when I first met you and just thought waiting outside that mansion would be the best call.
In a way, I suppose it was. I'm not quite sure how he would have reacted if you had come in. But it's not something we really need to contemplate, thankfully.
Yeah, it isn't. But at the same time, I still find it a bit funny. I was so nervous back then.
And look at you now, brimming with confidence.
There's still a little bit of nervousness underneath. Everything has changed. In a good way, but still nervous about stuff.
Oh, for sure. There's always going to be things that rattle us to our core. And quite frankly, what lies behind my father's office door is one of them.
Scribbles takes in a deep breath inside. He's like, "Are you doing okay right now, though?"
I think so. It's strange being back here. And stranger still that it's so empty and quiet. I'm not sure why I didn't expect the staff to leave as soon as their pay stopped coming through, but to just leave it, close the door, and pretend none of it was here. I want to do something with this building, but I'm not sure what. With Father Con, I suppose it becomes my decision. It's my house.
Indeed, he did say he leave everything to you. Though, I do have a thought, because the console was brought up. Maybe this building would be better used as sort of like a town hall or something, where all the council members could have their official offices and stuff and have meetings here.
Well, I suppose he did use it for that purpose when he was doing governor-type things. But I suppose that was just as much of working from home as anything.
Well, I say from what I've heard of him, I say he didn't really leave this place much, so...
No, it was his home and his office, and he would go from here to the spire in the centre of town, and to the Musehood occasionally. I don't think he really went up to the hall that often, actually.
Yeah, speaking of the hall, we will have to remind ourselves to drop back there to drop off those Jude books.
Oh yes, we can't forget to leave those. I spent a lot of time and money and effort finding all 100 of them, so they may as well go into the collection.
Yes, and honestly, I think it'd be really good, since we're trying to unite the types again, say, showing them that their magic is commonplace, and say, would be a good step.
Yes. Do you want to roll me another perception? I will make you roll one here.
Yes, I shall roll another perception. Alright. That's a decent roll. That's a 15.
Beauty. Alright, so under the layer of a couple of months worth of dust, this house is... This manor is grand. It's got white walls with, like, very beautiful crown molding along the top. There's lots of, like, art and stuff. The color that is in here is primarily in grays and yellows. Like, there is several shades of yellow and different tones of gray throughout. The floor is tiled, but they've got nice rugs. There's vases and things like that. And the door that Selli leads you to, how to put this? There's an artificer school at the university, yeah?
Yeah.
And lots of those workrooms would be heavily reinforced because, sometimes their experiments explode.
Oh yes, very much explosions is a commonplace at the at the artificer / science college.
Yeah, yes, wizards will do it too, but there's a difference between a magical explosion and I suppose mechanical explosion, for lack of a better word. And they need to be physically reinforced as opposed to just like with wards and shit. So yeah, there is distinct reinforcing on this door. Like, it's still a nice looking door. It's painted white, but it's got the heavy metal reinforcing with the big bolts and whatnot. Selli just goes and she tries the handle and it's not actually locked. So she opens it and moves the door aside so the two of you can go in.
Yeah, and Scribbles does say help with the door since it probably is pretty heavy, and say looks around.
Yeah, okay. So you're looking around. I won't make you roll it again. So on that 15, this room is a sort of a two-part room. It's quite big. In the front part, you've got a desk, a big desk, like think of Lynn's desk, and it's just as wide, but probably half again as long. And it's got big rows of shelving from this dividing wall that the desk is in front of, all the way to the wall that the door is on. And they're full of binders and books and papers and scrolls and all sorts of that kind of thing, all throughout that. And then behind the desk, so you've got a dividing wall, but it's not got doors in it. It's more just like this freestanding. Well, I mean, it's connected at the floor and the ceiling, but like it's not got doors on either side. It's just a partition wall that you can just walk all the way around. And like it's just got gaps at the ends rather than there being doorways. And as the two of you sort of walk through this office, you can walk all the way around in a circle. On the other side of that wall, which is actually quite thick, like you'd think of, like, say, a dividing wall in a house to be, you know, I'm just going to guess here. What's that? Let me try and convert this into inches in my brain. 8 inches thick, maybe? But this is a good, solid 2 feet thick dividing wall. It's thick. And if you were to wrap your knuckles against it, it doesn't sound hollow. It's solid.
Scribbles probably does, and he's just like, "Yep, this is an artificer, say room."
Well, he was a talented artificer.
He was.
Well,
I just wish he would have used his inventions for good.
As far as he was concerned, he was. But all the kindness in his heart died a long time ago.
Scribbles nods. Yes.
I just wish it hadn't taken me so long to see it.
I'm not very sure if he even sees it now. But he made his choice.
He did. And we made ours.
Indeed.
And she's going to nod and head around to the other side of that thick dividing wall. And this is where, if you forgive the phrase, the magic happens. Is his workbenches, his equipment. There's a shelf full of blue blueprint paper. This is his workshop.
Yeah, Scribbles follows her. He's just like, Ian sort of nods. He's just like, "Yep, this is an artificer's workshop for sure."
And I'm not going to make you roll an insight or anything. Selli is kind of looking at this half of the office going, I don't know what any of this is.
Scribbles
She's just sort of looking at it blankly, like awkwardly, like touching one of the blueprints, sort of scratches at her cheek a little bit, moves some equipment, and she's just sort of got this whole vibe of, I don't know what any of this is.
Scribbles just goes behind her and gives her a little pat on the shoulder. I think I can handle this, honey.
All right, I'll leave all of this stuff to you. Father did try to show it to me once, and I was just as confused then as I am now, even if I'm 20 years older than I was back then.
Yeah, this stuff is amazing and very well thought out and intelligent, if I could say that. But it is for sure not for everyone.
No, I might go back onto the other side and see what's on the shelves and see if there's anything I can find.
Probably a good idea. Divide and conquer.
Hmm. And she'll give him a little peck on the cheek before heading over to do just that.
Yeah, Scribbles is not glowing, but his hair is yellow again as he smiles. He's very happy as he starts working on this side.
All right. Well, I'll get you to roll a investigation while you're in here.
All right, investigation. Eh. All right. That's good. That's good. That's gonna be. Well, it's gonna be my passive pretty much because that's a 19.
Nice. All right. So, you're looking through, and there's a lot of work here, and there are definitely some plans that are older than others, and with that 19, you're able to tell that because there is a distinct style, I suppose, that's very similar to the plans that you found on Cinnabar in the catacombs.
Yeah.
So like the way that they're drawn is very similar, but then they sort of shift over time to the newer ones, and like there's obviously the paper feels a bit different because it was made here and is much newer kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of the plans, so there are plans for handheld devices. There are plans for buildings, but they're also very different to the way that Faber does architectural designs. This is very much a what's a good way to put it? It's not building a building. It's building a thing that just happens to be building shaped.
Yeah, sort of a machine sort of shape building sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so big that it may as well be a building.
Yeah.
And you're able to find a plan for the spire.
Mm-hmm.
And a plan for the Jewel of Life itself.
Makes sense.
And there's also plans for the weapons that you saw him using. You can find those. And there's lots of equipment for making those things. Like, obviously, there's your normal tools and whatnot, but there's also metals and glass and crystals and all sorts of doohickeys and doodads and bebobs and etc. So, like, it's an artificer's workshop, and it does contain plans for the sort of stuff that you would expect from him. A lot of it is to do with either his own personal armory or the Spire of Vitality or the Jewel of Life. But with that 19, you also find it's not a complete drawing. He obviously never got even to the testing phase of it. But you find a plan that it looks like something that you would put an egg into.
He's like while he's looking through this and going through this, he is organizing these notes and stuff. He is like putting like things into sort of piles of these are this research notes for this topic, these are research notes for his weapons, this is a research note for the spire, the jewel, everything. Just sort of going along as he sees stuff and organizing them, knowing that they'll have to like put these away eventually, so might as well start organizing them now. Then he gets the egg thing, and he is just like, there's sort of like a rock that hits in his stomach, and he's just like, oh dear God, what is this?
Well, having a closer look at this, it's definitely more. It's not a blueprint. This particular one that you find, it's more of just using the blueprint paper to get some ideas down. But the gist of it that you get was seems to be looking into ways to change someone's typing before they hatch.
Oh, that sends a shiver up his spine. He's just like, oh god. He just looks at these notes. He's just like, Ark, you messed up man. Don't you say you shouldn't try to play God? As he still bundles up those notes like he had for the others, and organizes them, but he still is just like disgusted at the thought of him trying to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. On that particular blueprint, one thing that catches your eye, again with that 19, I won't make you roll too many things for in here, is there are a number of different little coloured squares that are drawn onto the blueprint, and his handwriting sort of swaps between common and unbekannte glyphs, throughout. He is obviously fluent in both, and his handwriting is not necessarily the most clear.
I feel like that's one thing artificers and wizards have in common: bad handwriting, especially when writing out tons of notes.
Yes, but you're a scribe. You've got standards.
Yes, true.
But yes, so not all of his notes are 100% legible, but it looks as though there was something that he was thinking of using to determine the type of the egg. And yeah, that was that.
Scribbles starts thinking and stuff. He does remember from when there say back in the Pokemani plot that there were tiles in the old halls of Cinnabar, and they were related to each typing, and Selli's seeing one of them once. So he wants to see if he can find those tiles again.
All right. Well, with that, cool, because that was that. Oh, hang on. I've made you roll a few things, and now I can't remember which was which. Which was the investigation? Was that the 15 or the 19?
19.
The 19? Perfect. All right, cool. I don't have to make you roll again.
Woo!
Now that you've got something to look for specifically, you start looking through, and they are in one of the work benches. There is a drawer, like a nice wide, thin drawer under the bench top, and you can pull it open, and there are, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little tiles in there. All of different colours.
Yeah, Scribbles nods, and he takes out the tiles themselves, and sort of examines them.
Yeah, all right. They are, for lack of a better descriptor, about the size and shape of a Nintendo Switch cartridge.
Nice.
And they're not stone, and they're not glass, and they're not crystal, and they're not metal, and they're not wood, but they're kind of somewhere in between. They're not plastic either. They're just sort of the stuff. Not quite sure what they're made out of.
Scribbles knows that he probably won't find the dark and ghost tiles here. But what are the other two that are missing?
I'm trying to think. Well, there are definitely no black or purple ones. Absolutely. But the thing that I'll give you this one as well. The tiles that you're holding, there are different colours, but they don't seem as though they are distinctly type based. They're different colors, but you don't get that. Like, you don't get a necessarily a fire vibe from the red one. Like, you do, but you also don't. And you're welcome to roll an arcana or do something of that nature.
Oh yes, he would love to roll an arcana. He loves
I love
arcana.
making wizards roll arcana.
Yeah,
just to see how much detail I can give you.
That's gonna be a lot of detail, man. You want to know what he rolled? You want to know what he rolled?
Lay it on me.
So he rolled a 14, but his modifier is a 13. So that's a 27 in total.
Spectacular. I love that. All right. So, for the fire one in particular, let's just use that one as an example. So it is definitely magical, 100%. But the vibe that you get is that it's not just a nebulous fire type little card. It's almost seems like to you that these cards are spells that have been condensed down into this tiny little physical chip. So this red one, it might actually be something like Sacred Flame.
Scribbles does nod. Say, this would make sense. Say, he did use, say, artificers use machines as their conduit for magic. Say, in those little squares from before for his, yes, I think a gun would be the most appropriate term for it. Say, he did use these sort of things as ammunition, so this does make sense.
Roll me a... I'm going to call it a history.
All right. All right, now my dice have woken up. So that's going to be a 18 plus 9 for another 27.
Beautiful. Okay. So it was one thing to go through and find all of the things in Ark's workshop, but it's another to kind of put together what they are. And you were somewhat distracted by the changing the typing of an egg device thing that he was working on.
Yeah, for good reason.
But as you're looking at these little tiles, trying to figure out what they are about, it does twig that you actually did find amongst all of those blueprints something else that had those little squares, coloured squares on the blueprint. And you're able to shuffle through and find that one without any problems whatsoever. And it's actually a really strange looking device because it's not a gun and it's not anything to do with the spire or the jewel, but also because that was a 27 in history, you remember that there were sort of parts of it that looked similar on the jewel paperwork. But it looks like some kind of funnel or siphon or something. And then imagine one of those really strong hydraulic presses that they use to make those, like, paracetamol, the stuff that tastes like bicarb, that doesn't have, like, a candy shell on the outside or anything. Or, what is it? I think your Skittles over there are like that.
Yes,
or like
Skittles,
the candy bracelets.
Yeah.
Our Skittles are not like that, so I had to think about that for a second. Or like the candy bracelets or candy necklaces. I think those are like pressed sort of stuff. So it looks like some kind of siphon and then some kind of press. And that press is in that shape of those little squares.
Huh. That's how he makes his spells his it looks like. Very interesting. As he sort of like goes through the notes and like puts things together, and it's just like artificers have different ways of like showing their spells and producing magic. And he already thought it was neat that he used sort of these little tile slash cartridges to like do spells, but to see the work in progress, to see how he actually makes them, he's just like he's interested in them.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to do anything from this point now that you've had this realization of how Ark goes about doing his do?
He's gonna go back to the egg layout, because he's gonna look back in the notes where he sees those colored squares and see if he can like put together some more things of how were you gonna do this, man, or at least what
Okay.
was his thought process.
Well, like I said, this is definitely not a complete blueprint. Like there isn't even a prototype kind of incomplete blueprint. It's just some notes and some thoughts. It looks like there was a couple of lines of thought that were on this note paper about using a tile of some kind to affect the egg before it, like when it first appeared. Not so much in the way of which type. Like there was a few notes in the corner of removing a type from the egg entirely. But you can kind of see that there was a starting of a thought process, and then like a few little doodles of vague plans, and then just this sort of cross, and then he's left that thought process entirely. Because not having a type, that's he's not about that. That's a bit too far just for him. So then it moved on to the overwriting the current typing. Yeah, that's more or less as far as he got. There wasn't really like he got some basic shapes on what he thought the actual machine should look like, but the inner workings of it was very much still a rough draft.
That's fair.
Like nothing that you could build yet.
Yeah, which is fair, and honestly, he really sort of wants to burn these plans as it is right now, but at the same time, that's kind of not his call. Say, as he probably leaves that where it is and starts gathering up some other notes and stuff, probably some other things just to organize them into sort of again piles and everything, just for easy use of putting away for storage.
Sure. All right. No worries. Well, you are easily able to do that.
And
No
probably once
problems
he's done,
whatsoever.
he probably like say goes over to Selli. He's like, "How have you been handling things?"
And she's sitting at Ark's desk, and she's got several different binders and stuff out. A lot of this is to do with, well, the running of the island. Though I wouldn't have thought it needed too much, but it seems as though there's a lot of budgets, and thanks to all my work at the university lately, I actually understand this quite a fair bit. There's nothing really of interest here, though. I'm wondering, Scribbles, whether or not a council like what was on Cinnabar is really appropriate.
Scribbles nods. It is. We don't want things to keep repeating with history, and I could understand that. Maybe a council isn't necessary, but maybe a rotating leader would be better. Of course, I'm not very sure myself. I'm not. I have never read anything in my life other than my own research, but maybe
No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean at all. I think a council is definitely a good idea. having one person in charge of everything means that that person, there's no accountability. And while some leaders are very respectable, like Jon, for example, I think in a community that is going to have a lot of history to process and a lot of healing to do, and that is used to an ultimate power, having one person is definitely not a good idea, but what is appropriate for Johtos and Kantos needs to be for Johtos and Kantos, not just trying to bring back what Cinnabar had.
Scribbles nods at this. And I say, now that you explain it like that, I think that's right. I think I agree with that. This isn't.
Mia said that she's happy to run and make calls for the Mutherhood, and I think that is sensible. She is an expert in her field, and so she should be looking after it. But I wouldn't ask her to run anything to do with the town. She was saying as much herself, she wouldn't know how.
Yeah, Scribbles agrees with that. He's just like, I agree, and she already has enough on her plate as it is.
I think instead of having it be for the different type, make it the different aspects of life. Mia should definitely be on this council, whether or not she thinks she's worthy of it. But then have a representative for different aspects of life. She governs the Mutherhood as she would always. Have someone from the Hall who could govern that. Someone from the food production area, perhaps. And then someone to look after the civic part, the infrastructure and utilities and that sort of thing, the town part of the town. And then have the equivalent from Kantos as well. I'm sure Jon will be able to give some overall advice. But I think one of the failings of the Cinnabar Council was it had an even number. And you can't break a tie with an even number.
So we should make this an odd number.
Someone to govern the council whose power is specific. Like the chairperson, the person who organizes council meetings, who makes sure that if any ties occur between the others, their word is the one that sways the vote. But otherwise they don't really have that much of a say on what happens from a day to day. And overall, councillor and the others in charge of their different areas of expertise.
Scribbles nods. Similar to the university, since we have a head for each department, which governs its own sort of area.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure that for Cinnabar, the way that the council worked with the different types was sensible. The community there was set up differently. But between these two islands and the different people here, I think that having that be the approach might be more appropriate.
I think that'd be a good idea too.
We could even take it a step further, Scribbles. We could make it in place so that the people choose who is a councilman, or woman, or otherwise.
Yes.
That it's not simply something that is given to you, or you are born to, but it is something that you can apply for and step down from.
I was actually...
Like any other job.
Yeah, I agree. I actually was thinking along similar lines of at least whoever we put in charge, it wouldn't be necessarily permanent or, like you said, just born into. The people would choose you.
I think that would be most appropriate. And I do like your idea of this building being a town hall of sorts, but I think it's so big. And there would need to be an equivalent on Cantos that wouldn't all come out of here. So I think perhaps having it as some kind of community center would be ideal.
Scribbles nods.
Give this building back to the people here rather than have it loom over them.
Yes, and that was mainly what I was getting at. It's just like, of course, this is your home, this is your final say, but I thought maybe at least giving it back to the community would help.
I think it would. We will need to be very careful that everything that belonged to my father is put into storage so that no one can get their hands on it.
Yeah.
And I should like to take more of my own things. I do have some things. Much as I don't need a lot of these things anymore. Some of them Marigold might like. And maybe, I doubt it, but there might be a few things here and there that Rye might like to have again. If he has any fondness for any of those things.
I feel like we definitely need to keep these in storage, and I think once the castle is built, maybe have your father's stuff be brought over to there and just be in storage there, because there are some things that shouldn't be. He sighs as he waves her over to where he was at.
She'll come over.
As he specifically shows her the blueprints or the notes for the eggs, he's like, there are some things that no person should attempt.
I'm gonna roll her an intelligence. Okay, that's not very high at all. What's your intelligence again? I think it's a +2. Yes, it is. So that makes it a total of 8. Okay, so she doesn't understand as much as Scribbles does, because, like, it's artificing stuff, and she just doesn't understand it, and the complicated stuff of it visibly makes her a little bit confused. But I'm going to say, because it wasn't super awful, there are the important bits that sort of stick out. And she looks a little bit unwell.
Yes. Also, 1 second, please.
Bye,
Sure.
babe. Have a good day. Love you too. I will.
Alright. Just want to say goodbye to my husband before he goes off to work.
Ah, lovely. Yeah, so Selli looks a bit unwell.
It thankfully never got to the testing phase, but he had the thought of doing this, and it sickens me.
He resented those times so much that this would even cross his mind. It would be easier, far easier, if he were dead. And I hate that I'm thinking that, Scribbles. I really do.
Yeah, and Scribbles is like holding her right now. He is just hugging her.
I don't think I even really knew who he was.
Say that again. You were a bit soft.
Oh, so was she. She's just sort of doing a little bit of a...
That's fair.
kind of.
That's fair. That's fair.
She's having a little bit of an emotional thing at the moment.
Scribbles just kisses her on the cheek and sort of just cradles her. the moment I saw these, I wanted to burn them. But that's not my call to make.
She's quiet for a little bit. And thinky think. Checking all my spells. Yeah, okay. She then takes the blueprint and she folds it. None of this nice kind rolling, like he keeps all of his things rolled. No, she folds. And then she holds it out towards Scribbles in both hands and just goes, I don't know any fire spells. Would you do the honors?
Scribbles nods as he takes the notes and he's going to basically use a fire cantrip. Let's just say he has. Does he have that? Yeah, he has firebolt. He's fine. He has fire. He basically does a little firebolt in his hand and burns the notes.
Beauty. They burn to cinders, and she lets them fall onto the floor. She's sort of squared her shoulders and just sort of brushes off her hands, and then sighs. Is there anything else of interest that you found?
Nothing as disturbing.
Well,
Plans for the spire, blueprints for the spire, the jewel, his armory, of course. The way he casts his spells in these little tiles as he picks up one of the little tiles and shows it to her.
Oh, these are for those.
Indeed. It's very interesting. They're basically a little compact spell.
That would make sense. I think I've told you before, he can't do magic the way that I do, or the way that Rai does, or that you do. He never could. Not even cantrips. He always had something to create magic.
Yeah, and there's blueprints actually for that right here, as he points that out. To create those things. Really interesting stuff. I always find it amazing what ingenious way artificers do to be able to do something as simple as a cantrip.
And here, let me show you something that I found. And she pulls open a drawer of his desk. And in it are these things that they're about the size of a small measuring tape, like any kind that you'd get from a hardware store, right?
Yeah.
They're about that big. And they've got a little slot on one side and then what would you call it? It's not quite a button and it's not quite a switch. But it's like a thing that you'd press with your thumb and slide it to activate it and then pull it back.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I am holding a measuring tape, so it's like that. But she's got one of those, and she'd take one of those little cards. Oh, that's right. I deleted his character sheet because he doesn't exist anymore.
Fair enough.
She takes one of those cards and she sticks it into this little device. And then she flicks the switch. And this is one of the this was the red one. And there's this sort of, it's kind of like a lighter noise, and then there's just this vroomf of sacred flame. You can recognize it immediately as a sacred flame that kind of comes into life near this thing, and then she pulls the lever back the other way and it goes out.
Oh, that's neat.
He had lots of these. I don't know how many uses they've got or why he would have so many, but we should take these, if nothing else, and maybe the others could use them. We need to do something to thank them for their involvement, so perhaps this would be an appropriate thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think this would I think these things would be totally safe and be fine. As he sort of just looks at it, he's just like, man, artificer stuff is cool. But it's just like
She's gonna nod and she's gonna count how many cards there are and have a little bit of a think of all the people, and she's just gonna grab from this drawer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and she's just gonna stick them straight into her pockets, and then just nod and be like, "We can distribute those when we get home. I think, yeah, it would be nice to give something back to the others."
I agree. They have done a lot.
And goodness knows that my father won't be using them anytime soon, so...
Hopefully never again.
Yes. Hopefully never again. Which is a bit of a sad thing, really, but... at the same time...
It's hard to process, and I can recognize that. Especially for you.
Yes. It's at about this time that there is a commotion from outside. You can hear it through a heavily, heavily reinforced window.
Oh boy. As he looks out the window to see what's going on.
This particular window faces towards the water, actually. And it sounds like it's coming from sort of the dock area.
Scribbles sort of nods as he gets a thought in his head. I think maybe Jan's here.
Oh dear. Well, we should go to meet him.
Yep, indeed. As Scribbles just wraps his arm around her as he decides we need to be there as quickly as possible and uses dimension door.
Okay, great. So you dimension door your way back to the dock area, and lo and behold, there is the Ninth Life, a Viking-style longship at the dock. And not only does Ralph have Jon OR on board, but there is a small gaggle of both ghost and dark types on board with him. Mimi being one of them. Who has already disembarked and is heading towards the big group of other kids to play with. And there is an adult running after her. You get the feeling that this happens fairly often.
God bless Mimi.
But the commotion is more from Johtos natives who have come over to see these Pokemani they've never met before just showing up. That doesn't happen when you're on an island. You know everybody at least a little bit. Who are these people?
Scribbles just does prayer hands and he's just like, and he just sort of whispers to Silly, I thought he was just breaking Jan and maybe it'd be more hush-hush, but apparently not.
Well, I did say that Jan could bring whoever he saw fit, but perhaps that was a little broad.
A little bit broad indeed.
Well, let's go see. And she's going to go forward and go to say hello to Jon, more or less.
Yeah, Scribbles is right beside her, holding her hand.
The crowd of Pokemani from Johtos is actually quite big. It almost seems like it's filled the entire dock area. But they recognize Selli and they let her through because she's obviously trying to get to the dock. And as she smiles at Jon as she gets close and just goes, "Thank you for coming. I'm sorry I didn't give you any further notice." And Jon just gives a nod and It was an unexpected invitation, but I am not sad to be back on this island. You've caused a bit of a stir. Yes, you can blame him for that. And he just sort of turns and looks at Ralph, who just gives a very cheerful wave, like, I'm a shithead. I know what I did.
Scribbles just sighs and sort of bridges his nose if he had one.
But, yeah, by this point, also Mia and the ferryman have come over as well. And they all kind of look at each other, and then they look over at this huge array of Pokemani. And then Yon looks at Selli. Well, for better or for worse, you have their attention. What are you going to tell them? Oh, what am I going to tell them? And she kind of just looks at Scribbles for a moment.
Scribbles gives her a gentle smile. He says, take it slow, breathe, as he sort of just does a deep breathing exercise in and out with her.
She'll do that. She'll breathe in and out, and then you go, it's just like a staff meeting at the university. It will be fine. And then she turns to this crowd of people around her, and she motions to Yon and says, everyone, this is Yon from Kantos, and I've invited him here to help with restructuring how the Pokemani live and govern themselves. You will have noticed that my father, Ark Alamos, has not been around for a while, and I regret to tell you all that he will not be returning. And so, in his absence, things are going to change. I cannot take up governance of Johtos, and I'm not willing, even if I could. But a proposal was made that instead of one leader, one ruler, that both Johtos and Kantos, and she stops and looks at Yon, create a united council so that all aspects of life on the two islands are looked after and a voice can be made. The exact details will need to be decided upon, and everyone on both islands will be consulted for their thoughts, because this is not something that is going to happen overnight, and isn't something that is going to be hereditary. It will take some time and some adjustment, but for now, all I ask is that everyone here treat Yon and those that have come over from Kantos with the utmost respect and manners, and to help guide this process for the benefit of all Pokemani, for a better future. And there's sort of like a murmur and a polite little clap. And the rumor mill has started. Oh, Ark's not coming back? What happened? Why isn't she telling us what's happened? But, yeah, no one is particularly coming up to shout these questions. They're all doing a little bit of a polite. I look at her plus 10 persuasion. I'm not going to roll this. It's an FPS.
Yeah.
But, yes, she's very persuasive. So.
Yes.
And I don't particularly want to do the working out of the exact details of their new council regime on screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I cannot think.
No, that could definitely be done in the background and stuff. The ice has now been broken. It has been started.
For sure. What I will say, though, as part of that development process, is Selli is going to propose that given as the original purpose for the Spire of Vitality is no longer required for the maintenance of Johtos, let it be gutted and a teleportation circle station be installed inside it instead. Because it's, well, big enough, so may as well use it for something.
Exactly. Now people can easily have access to the island.
Absolutely.
And the mainland.
Access in and critically access out. She's going to, well, encourage people to explore because, gosh, the world is so much bigger than just that island. And oh, by the way, if you're interested in some really cool education stuff, I actually run a university. Here are some flyers. Just do some marketing. Captive audience.
Exactly. And I'll say also here's a whole section of magic that wasn't in the library. Have fun with that.
Oh yes, absolutely. There's going to be a whole press conference and a half about, okay, so this is druid magic. This is actually normal. This stuff was missing. This stuff has been rectified. Please enjoy this new section of your wonderful library. And also come and experience our library. We could have a library exchange program. That would be so cool.
Yes.
And she's after it kind of settles a little bit and it goes from extensive how the hell do we govern ourselves, and she can get into the more fun bit of, hey, we have learning opportunities. Let's do learning opportunities, because she can just switch herself back into promoting the university mode.
Yes. Yes. Promote the university.
Oh, golly. Well, I don't have anything else. What about you?
I say, Scribbles probably does mention that, probably they do it off screen of, like, they eventually at least tell what they need, maybe eventually tell what they need to about why Arc isn't coming back to, like not have a rumor mill and stuff, because that could be bad.
Yeah, it'd need to be broached very carefully, because like the ferryman was saying before, like the more you tell them, the more you have to tell them in order to like justify what you've already said. So like there's going to be a process.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a process, and maybe maybe what they do is like Jan, Mia, and the ferryman like talk about the process in private, and they say all of them make out a plan of how they're gonna broach this and when. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that has to happen soon or fast, and them and the new council can figure that part out, I think.
Yeah, and I agree. First set up the council, but still maybe say right away, it's like, look, we know this is gonna happen eventually. Let's do this slowly and right.
For sure. Oh dear. Well, that was only, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. Oh boy. No, wait, hang on. The twins, Ralph, Mia, the ferryman, and Jon. 6. Gosh.
Yep. You did an amazing job.
And they all have slightly different voices, and I managed it.
You did! It's awesome.
Oh dear. Voices are fun. This is my pro tip for everybody playing D&D. Do a voice. Do a character voice. They're a hoot.
Yes, they are very fun. Yeah, but probably Ralph will take it back. Scribble is just like reassuring Selli. It's just like that everything went all right. Things are going to be okay. We can still monitor the situation, and if they need help, we'll come back. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, it always helps to have hands on deck when you're putting a new system in place.
Exactly.
But it's critically not going to be expected that she just jump in there and take over the island, which is the critical part because she's already jumped in to take over the university. She can only do one thing at a time.
Exactly. And Scribbles will be, again, saying when he's coming back, he's like, all right, now that we got that settled, we now need to get you an assistant because you are working way too hard.
Yes, Lynn said she knew someone that would be well suited to it, but, well, between me being busy and her being busy, we've just not really teed up a time to meet them. That's all.
That's fair. I think you should probably urge her to help you get in contact with her sooner than later with everything that's happening with the university, and whatever hell breaks loose, at least we can have something.
I'll make a note and I'll write her a letter before we go to bed tonight.
Good. And Scribbles gives her a little kiss.
And, yeah, I'm happy to leave it there.
Yes.
What do you reckon?
Same here.
Oh, well, that was a nice little jaunt of, installing a government.
Indeed, installing a government, but it also was very much needed.
Yes. Oh, dear. Well, I had fun.
I had a lot of fun,
I suppose we
too.
say goodbye to everybody now.
Yep.
Bye-bye, audience.
Bye.